Thank you, Glenn. I like the guy you describe a lot better than the guy that stares back at me when I shave. Good evening, Dean Quinlan, other deans, USC colleagues, friends of Scripter, friends of the library. We have some nominees here tonight, Mr. Moore, Mr. McCartan, Ms. Strayed, Mr. Pynchon. Glad you're all here. I return to Scripter each year because it's a great evening, unique in the entertainment industry and in the world of libraries. Scripter has its origin in the USC Library System, in rooms like this one, and that shines through in the way we honor writers and writing. I'm proud to be a part of this tradition. I've had the pleasure of announcing the Scripter winners the last few years as one of your selection committee chairs. I will do that again soon, but first, this year, I also have the honor of presenting the USC Libraries Literary Achievement Award. The Literary Achievement Award recognizes authors whose life and work engage cinematic storytelling in substantive ways, as well as those screenwriters who have advanced the art of literary adaptation. There's no one who better fits that description than tonight's honoree, Walter Mosley. All right. In the first sentences of Raymond Chandler's Farewell, My Lovely, published in 1939, Philip Marlowe and Moose Malloy pay a visit to a second-story dine and dice emporium called Florian's on Central Avenue, less than 5 miles southeast of where we are tonight. Malloy comes to Florian's to look for his lost love, a woman named Velma. Aren't they all? When he and Marlowe ascend the stairs, it's clear that the neighborhood has changed. Moose and Marlowe are the only two white people in the place. The bouncer gently tells them, Velma used to work here, but Velma don't work here no more. Moose, of course, gets into a fight, doesn't he always? Then leaves. And the rest of the novel takes place in the world of white men and white women, which is to say, the world. And that's largely the way the world remained in crime fiction from 1939 until 1990, when Walter Mosley, child of Los Angeles, proud graduate of Hamilton High, published Devil in a Blue Dress. Walter did something so stunning, so transformative, that in hindsight it seems inevitable. He turned the camera 180 degrees so that we were seeing the world not from the point of view of the white men who occasionally stray into the wrong part of town, but from the point of view of black men and women with their own subjectivity, leading their own fully imagined lives, occasionally troubled by the violent or clueless white men who wander in. He had his predecessors, of course. Chester Himes comes prominently to mind. But in one stroke, Walter stood the genre on its head. And in doing so, over the course of a 25-year career, he has triumphantly turned the world 180 degrees, and fiction about Los Angeles now comes to resemble the city that we really live in. Devil in a Blue Dress, later adapted as the film starring Denzel Washington and Don Cheadle, was the first of Walter's books to feature his magnificent and magnificently human E.Z. Rawlins, an aircraft plant laborer turned detective armed with patience, honesty, a really good working moral compass, and the ability to see us better than we see ourselves. He was too large, too droll, and too important a presence for one book to contain, so he spilled over into a dozen more novels. And in doing so, Walter and E.Z. limned the history of Los Angeles, the real Los Angeles, from the defense plants of the mid-40s through the McCarthy era, the Kennedy assassination, the Watts riots, the Vietnam War, the Summer of Love, and beyond. But if E.Z. Rawlins was too interesting, too compelling to be contained in one book, Walter was just too imaginative to be constrained within one character. So there were 3 novels pairing the Florence Avenue bookseller Paris Minton with the war hero Fearless Jones. Fearless and Paris also pop up in Showtime's magnificent Fallen Angels series. And then 3 featuring my own favorite, the ex-con Socrates Fortlow, who you may remember from the book Always Outnumbered, Always Outgunned, and its HBO movie adaptation with Lawrence Fishburne. And now there are 4 mysteries starring New York-based private eye, former boxer Leonid Trotter McGill. You'd think that would be the end of it. But if you think that, you don't know Walter. To the delight of his readers, and very likely to the dismay of his publishers, Walter can't stop writing. So in addition to the aforementioned series, there's Walter's science fictions, Walter's plays, Walter's screenplays, Walter's teleplays, Walter's comic books and graphic novels, Walter's young adult books, Walter's stunningly sound advice on how to write a novel, and yes, Walter's erotica. And those of you in this room who have outgrown 50 Shades or never had much use for it in the first place should really read Walter's Killing Johnny Fry, a book that makes you want to put your Kindle in a plain brown wrapper. And then there's Walter's inquisitions, incisive and unsparing, into the state of what used to be called race relations. I'd recommend The Man in My Basement for anyone who wants to truly unsettle their mind. And did I mention the exhibitions of Walter's drawings? Walter is also possessed of courage, of wit, of astonishing generosity. He mentors, he inquires, he prods with a gentle persistence that's hard to evade. If I'm getting somewhere this week with the rewrite of my own novel, it's only because Walter took the time to lend a fellow writer a hand, offering advice so obvious I'd never in a lifetime have come across it on my own. And that kind of fine care for his fellow writers is something Walter does unflaggingly and without ever calling attention to it. If I count correctly, since his debut in 1990, Walter has written some 50 books. And if I were to take the time to sing Walter's praises in all their deserving glory, by the time we got out of here, there'd be 51. As Walter says, the job of the writer is to take a close and uncomfortable look at the world they inhabit, and the job of the novel is to make the corpse stink. So let me tell you what a reward, what a pleasure, what a deep delight it is to honor the man who chronicles our city and now our world, who never flinches from that close and uncomfortable look, who always makes the corpse stink to high heaven, who writes so well and so honestly and with so much heart that the world has been turned 180 degrees, and under his gorgeous, salutary, disturbing influence, together we have all of us made half a revolution. Please welcome to the stage the 2015 USC Libraries Literary Achievement Award winner, Walter Mosley.
Thank you, Howard. That was great. I loved that. You know, I don't have to say anything now. You know. I was talking to a friend today, and I was trying to explain, my understanding about people you like and people you don't like. You know, people you like, you accept their flaws. People you don't like, you don't accept their flaws. It's just like, it's not like the people you like are better than the people you don't like. It's just that you just don't like those people. You don't accept either the way they smell or the way they talk or, whatever, And then these other people, you like what they do, I think of a friend of mine who invited, my mother died, and when we were young, there was 3 of us who were really good friends, but I kind of fell out with one of my friends, and I didn't like him anymore. So my mother died. I didn't invite him to the funeral, but my other friend said, we have to invite him. I said, no, and he invited him anyway. But I love my friend, so that little flaw of his, I just liked it. The guy didn't come, and I was very happy about my friend making the mistake. I say this because I sent a note to the librarians saying, how long should I talk? Now, I don't know how many people here are librarians or how much you hang out with librarians, but librarians are happy to give you more information than you ask for. And one of the pieces of information they give you is what you can say. It's not only like how long you can talk, but what you should say in that time that you should talk. And so I got this note saying, well, you should speak for 4 to 5 minutes, and you should talk first about how much you love libraries. And then you could talk a little bit about translating novels into screenplays, And of course, I can't do that in 5 minutes anyway, so I decided I would do, the former, and talk about my love of libraries, however flawed they may be. On September 11th, 2001, I was standing in the window talking on the phone to my friend Kirsten Childs, who I went to Louis Pasteur Junior High School with, doesn't even exist anymore, and Hamilton High School. We both lived in New York, and we were just chatting in the morning, and I felt a concussion. And I looked up, and there's all this smoke rising out of one of the, the towers. And I'm talking to Kirsten, trying to figure out what happened. What's going on? And I see this plane kind of wobbling a little bit. It looked like it was lost, and it crashes into the other tower. And I go, oh my God, I don't think this is an accident, And, I got off the phone. And the day went on. And, the towers collapsed. The news was everywhere. Most of us know about that. We're here for that. In the afternoon, thousands upon thousands of people covered in ash were walking up my street from the world, Wall Street. People who escaped death and were now just kind of trudging home. It was very warlike, the look. And then a day or so goes by, and the president is going to talk to the people, and what he does, he has the Congress, and he has the cabinet, and he has the Supreme Court, and they're all sitting around. I don't know if you remember, and he's saying, well, we're going to stand up for freedom. Everybody applauds, and whenever they applaud, they all stood up. And then he says something else, and they all stood up. And at one point he said, and we may have to limit some personal freedoms in the United States. And everybody applauded and stood up except the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, well, wait a second. That's kind of weird. So like all of a sudden now we're going to limit the personal freedoms of Americans, and that's weird. And so time goes on, and personal freedoms start to get limited in all kinds of different ways. People start being, I had friends, who had trouble in the 60s. All of a sudden they couldn't get on airplanes anymore. And, and there were people being arrested and people being questioned, people being listened to. And that president, Mr. Bush, sent out a memo to the library saying, we need to know who is reading what. Who's reading books about building bombs, and who's reading books about Islam, and who's reading books that may be considered anti-American. And the librarian said, fuck you. What's wrong with you, motherfucker? I ain't doing that. The librarian said, I know, this is not like on television, right? Well, I don't know. The librarian said, no, we aren't going to do that. And it dawned on me, because I always loved libraries, and I accepted librarians' flaws, and I liked them for them. But I realized it was the last bastion in America to stand up for our freedom. Because our freedom is mainly an intellectual thing, right? It's like you stop and you think. You say, no. This woman is free to read what she wants, to think what she wants, to say what she wants, to do what she wants. This man is free to do all those same things. And so when I was asked to come to participate in an event, which is, among other things, going to raise money for a library, it's going to make the libraries stronger, well, I thought, that's great, because in making libraries stronger, I'm making America stronger, the America that I know and that I love. So thank you very much.